Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Africa. You know we love the Big C drop. We also love you in Canada, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August 21st, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I guess it's been kind of depressing because of the bad weather up in the Northeast today. You know, for this past week, I've been sitting around watching the Little League World Series. Man, waiting for it. Man, you talk about some exciting baseball. These little fellas, man, they go out and put their hearts on their sleeves. And they play baseball. They play for the love and the passion of the game, just like every young man and boy did and girl when they were growing up, Charlton, that you went out and you had fun. You know, you see the parents and family members up in the stands cheering these young people on, Charlton.
Yeah.
Just a great and exciting time. But today it was, washed out because of rain, and so I had to shed a few tears and have a drink to dry up my tears also.
Yeah.
But, I'm looking forward to hopefully tomorrow that, the sun will shine and the little fellas will be out playing again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure. Kids play whether it's dirty, whether it's rain, doesn't matter if it's smoggy. I know kids they just play midnight without lights. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was a young boy, all we needed was mama's back porch light on and some baseball. A couple of us got hit by some line drives, but we learned our lesson, Big, so we started playing more in daylight. A lot of good things happening in the sports universe, and everybody's loving football. It's always a love-hate relationship. You see guys coming into the league, but there's always guys going out of the league, so we got to keep that in mind. And you have the Oakland A's and the Houston Astros playing like they want to be the best teams in baseball, even though Boston's running away with everything. But I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. I was doing some reading in the New York Times just the other day, just yesterday, and it says as the hitters pile up, the strikeouts, the fans are catching up on their sleep. Now, you talked about Little League baseball, Big C, and we say everybody loves the long ball, but we have some great pitching now, and they're saying that it's making people fall asleep. Would you agree or disagree with that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we haven't seen the runs scored this year in baseball like we have in the past. That long ball era is basically gone in baseball, which brought all the fans back to the ballpark.
Yeah.
There was a point earlier this season where there was more strikeouts than hits in baseball.
Yeah.
So it lets you know that the pitchers were dominating the game or that the players were a little more inept on the batting side these days, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, baseball is just always one of those games of angles and strategy. It's not like you take a pitcher now, Charlton, and he can go 8-9 innings in a game.
Yeah.
They try to get 6 innings out of a pitcher, and the average team is using 4 or 5 pitchers in a game, and they're situational guys.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're taking the offense out of the game of baseball and making it all about the defense. And so when you constantly are facing a fresh pitcher, you bring a relief pitcher and he's throwing 99 miles an hour, and the guy who just left was throwing 95.
Yep.
So you're trying to catch up with him. It's not a fan-friendly environment when you look at that, because baseball is all about strategy now. It's not about just straight out playing the game. You see these shifts that they put on defensively, where they'll put all the infielders on one side of the field, Johnson, because they know that a guy is a dead pull hitter and he doesn't know how to hit to the opposite field.
Yeah.
So baseball players are a little less dimensional now than what they were a couple decades ago.
Yeah, I think sometimes, too, when they actually want to pitch away from the guys who can hit, and that's one thing, I understand that strategy, but if you're a fan, you can't tell me that you don't want to see when Barry Bonds came up to the bat, or Trout, or if you see Judge coming up, or Stanton coming up. You don't want to pay top dollar to have those guys walked. So that's a strategy, and I wish they would take that out of the game where they could slide the field. It would be nice if they just let you play the game, because you're playing it for the fans. And I know that the managers might say, what are you talking about? We're playing to win. But when you got people, the seats are empty. It's just, I don't know if it's pricing or whatever it is, there's a lot of the times where they used to not pan up as much. But almost watching games in Cincinnati, you can't help but to pan. Even on the lower deck, they have a lot of empty seats in a new ballpark. Maybe because they just no one's hitting home runs like they used to back in the day. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, panning up, and also you got to understand that school is starting.
Yeah.
So, so many kids now can't attend these late-night games through the week. They have to go to school. So when Major League Baseball teams are playing, midweek games, Charlton, and they're, first pitch at 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
These kids have to be at school at, 8 o'clock in the morning the following day. So it impedes a lot of attendance now, not just on the children, but the parents' behalf of going to the game. And you can't play the game any earlier because they're in school.
Yep, that's true.
So, that's why so much of baseball is looked at being played during the summer months, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they need to find a way to play more double headers during the summer months so that you can get a better attendance. Because once we get to September, Charlton, it's basically over for school-age kids unless it's a weekend game.
Yeah, that's very true. And so today, some of the action, you have the San Francisco Giants going back to where they started playing the Mets. You have St. Louis, and they're playing a series against the LA Dodgers. I love watching that, the Cardinal in gray versus the blue and white, the Dodgers and St. Louis. And if you think about it, the Dodgers are the more ballyhooed team, but since St. Louis made a managerial switch, they're actually 69 and 57, and the Dodgers are 67 and 59. I remember watching Ozzie Smith play back in the day, and whenever they came out to the West Coast and played the Dodgers, that was always must-see TV. Now, if I get a chance for must-see TV, I want to see Yasiel Puig, and I want to see Clayton Kershaw, but there's something about those contrasting colors, no matter who's playing, whether it's home or away. It's always a great scene. Big C, your thoughts on the history of just those two great franchises matching up against each other?
Well, two of the storied franchises in baseball, you talked about Ozzie Smith. He started his career on the West Coast as a member of the San Diego Padres prior to a trade, being sent to the Midwest and, being a part of that great Cardinal franchise for a decade and a half, Charlton, roaming at shortstop.
Yeah.
But when you think about the history of that organization, you go back to the great pitchers that they've had, the great hitters, the managers. Yep. I mean, when you think about the manager that was with the A's, who ended up out there, with the Cardinals winning a couple World Series in Charlton.
Yeah.
And so there's a history of back and forth between the East and the West, and like I said, that pitcher Bob Gibson, who changed the history of baseball, who made them lower the mound.
Yeah.
When you can have less than a 2.0 ERA throughout the season and also win the World Series.
Yeah.
And so, when you look at that, you think about the history of Busch Stadium in St. Louis with the arch being in the backdrop.
Yep.
And, the Cardinals are like the Yankees in baseball. When they're good, Charlton, baseball has a good following.
Yeah.
Because they can always pack the house in St. Louis.
Yeah, and that's the great Tony La Russa. I remember he had an organization out in the Bay Area when La Russa was actually with the Oakland A's, and when they do a lot to save the animals, Big C. So I think had he went down south, where you are, he would have taken down a lot of those Animal Crossing signs because he saw that you guys were taking advantage of animals not being literate. They should have put it in dog paw, like the paw up means stop, the paw down means go. They should have done that for the Animal Crossing sign. But yeah, La Russa did a great job in St. Louis, also over in Oakland. It seems like everywhere he went, teams were always competing for championships. And speaking of Oakland, 75 and 50 for the Oakland A's, taking on the Texas Rangers at a 56 and 71. Ironically, Texas was in the World Series more recently than the Oakland A's when they were knocked out by the San Francisco Giants. But the Oakland A's are playing some really good baseball now. Really good seeing that for the East Bay. We have Atlanta at Pittsburgh. That's delayed. And the Philadelphia at Washington. I know Washington, they made a lot of splash, I would say, in the world of baseball, hosting the All-Star Game. It really showed how beautiful Nationals Ballpark is. The fact that they came from Montreal and they built a beautiful gem of a ballpark. They haven't lived up to the billing as far as playing. I don't think they've been with the hope that they used to have when they had Dusty Baker, but they got rid of Dusty. And I know a lot of people want to see Washington do well. It'd be great if the team in the nation's capital had success. but I know they just haven't found what they're looking for yet, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a team that's almost abandoned the season already. They've started to make some moves through the trade wire, getting rid of key players, and talking about the process of building for the next couple of years, Charlton. But you know, when Dusty Baker was there, they didn't give up. They went all the way through.
No.
But they got rid of Dusty Baker, saying, well, you were eliminated in the playoffs.
Yes.
And then the following year, you're bringing a new manager, and you don't even make the playoffs.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's amazing how teams find success non-attractive in professional sports. If you're winning, you know, it's like, hey, you know, this is not where we want to be. And when we look at the Northeast, it seems to have that same mantra. You know, the Nationals won with Dusty Baker.
Yep.
They said it wasn't enough. Let's get rid of him.
Yep.
The Buffalo Bills went to the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor. We're not satisfied with that. Let's trade him. And so this is the thing that you're looking at in that region of the country.
Yeah.
We understand that everybody wants to win a championship. Only one team in each league is going to win each year.
Yeah.
But making the playoffs means something. Is that when you have an environment in place in a clubhouse or a locker room that can get you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's the nucleus you really don't want to get rid of. You want to hold on to it and build upon it.
Yeah.
Don't say that we can scrap this and find something better that wasn't there last year.
Yeah, that's a lot of times. I look at Dusty Baker. Dusty also had that same treatment in San Francisco when they got rid of Dusty for mostly competing and even getting to a World Series. But when he was let go, there's a lot of just non-talking, a lot of ego in the way, and I thought Dusty didn't get the best end of that deal because he went on and showed that he could win in Cincinnati. He went on and showed that he could win in Chicago. He went on and showed that he could win in Washington. But for some reason, I guess he's not given that same respect that a lot of other managers get.
What happens, Charlton, is that they bring him in. He builds up an organization. And then they want to give someone else the credit for it. You know, when you look at the history of Major League Baseball, Charlton, there's not a flourishing number of African-American managers who have won World Series. Just like in the NFL, there's not a flourishing number of African-American coaches that have won the NFL title, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But, you know, they have built teams to get to that point. Look at Tony Dungy in Tampa.
Yeah.
He built a team up. John Gruden walked in. All of a sudden, John Gruden is a guru.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to coaching, even though he hadn't won before or after that. You know, and the same thing with Dusty Baker. I mean, he built the nucleus of the Cubs. A couple of years later, they ended up winning a World Series, but they had not been in the playoffs, Charlton, for a long time prior to him getting to that point. He turned around a struggling Reds organization, Charlton, that had not been prominent since, you know, back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So, you know, certain people come in, Charlton, and people see what they can build. But they don't want to give them all the prestige of winning the championship.
Yep.
So they would like to get them to that point of where they're just about at the verge. Then they can bring in one of their guys and say, this is our guy that we brought in to win the championship.
Yeah.
And he delivered.
Yeah.
Makes it real easy.
I tell you what, Dusty, wherever he's gone, he's left a lot of dust behind him because he's kept winning, and he keeps winning. He was just recently in San Francisco for Barry Bonds' retirement. Also, we go back to the East Coast, Cleveland at Boston. Boston's the top dog in the Major League Baseball. New York at Miami, and Cincinnati at Milwaukee. Houston is up in the Great Northwest at Seattle. So a lot of good things happening in the world of Major League Baseball. Again, really impressed with the way the A's are playing. It's going to be interesting seeing them coming down the stretch, Big C, with just about a month and a half to go. Wouldn't it be something? I know nobody really expected this even before the All-Star break, but since the All-Star break, they've been one of the hottest teams. Would it be something if they could overtake the World Series champions in the Houston Astros, coming from the abyss, a team that nobody really expected to be there, a team that has subpar facilities? Everybody's finding a reason to get out of Oakland for whatever reason. And of all teams, they're starting to galvanize the East Bay. What would it mean to that region if they were to get to the point where they win their division and have a chance to get, of course, back into the World Series? I mean, it would be not too much of a stretch with the way they're playing baseball right now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if they just continue on the pace that they are, they're a team 25 games above 500.
Yeah.
That's not a bad position to be in at this point in the season. So if they can continue to play at least 500 baseball, you know that they're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And once you get into the playoffs, that's when you can cause damage, Charlton, because you're talking about a short series against a team that you're going to see for an entire week.
Yeah.
It's not about traveling back and forth, seeing different sets of pitchers and batters, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's about being hot for the best of a 5 or 7 game series.
Yep.
And A's have proven, since they've been the hottest team in baseball since June, that they have the ability to make waves if they get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But it would be great, Charlton, just for baseball, to have a West Coast entity that hasn't been there in a couple decades.
Yep.
And, you know, to bring back a lot of that rich history of the A's that goes back to Charlie Finley, Charlton, and the players that he brought in out of obscurity, to have some of the history of that great organization on deck, Charlton, if they make the playoffs, to have them out there for that opening game, and also to have them have some of those players out to throw every opening home game pitch, Charlton.
Wouldn't that be amazing, having Ricky Henderson stealing bases again, just for the sake of it, Big C? But that's really good for the A's. As we swing a little bit to the world of the NFL, I know we covered a lot of NFL the last couple of days, but last night when you look at the Ravens versus the Colts, and then Andrew Luck, I would say taking a pounding, but they also took it easy on him. It could have been a lot worse. He doesn't seem to be, I mean, you were calling it before, he's not throwing the ball downfield, he's kind of pushing it down the field, and I think we saw more of that last night. I hope he's not injured. If he's hurt, of course, they're going to hide that as much as possible, but when players will not even sack him to the ground, it's not out of respect. Maybe they felt that he was injured. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's preseason. There's nothing to prove by slamming a quarterback to the ground, and it's also a penalty rule now. Matter of fact, we saw in the Vikings game over the weekend where, you know, they go in and sack the quarterback from the Jaguars and they get a penalty just on a basic sack. They said he slammed him to the ground.
Yeah.
But it was just a basic quarterback sack that many of the defensive linemen have done for decades, Charlton, and a lot less than what they've done. My major concern with Andrew Luck, and I talked about it before the game, is that he hasn't thrown anything down the field over 20 yards yet, Charlton, 25 yards. That is my concern. People can say, well, he looks good, he looks sharp, he looks crisp. Yes, you can do that when you're throwing little quick hitches and bumps, when you're throwing 7 to 12-yard passes. Everybody should be able to complete those. But there comes a time in a game where you have to stretch the defense. You have to put the ball in the air 40, 50 yards. Andrew Luck has not showed me the ability to do that at all, Charlton. When they first started showing clips of him throwing the football, he was tossing the football, Charlton. It reminded me of a Pop Warner practice, the way that he was throwing the football. He had no velocity on it. He had no torque on the ball, Charlton. He still has not demonstrated that yet in the preseason. If you look at the difference between he and Jacoby Brissett throwing the football, Jacoby Brissett looked like a professional quarterback for Indianapolis last night, throwing the football. Velocity on the ball, tight spiral, pushing it outfield, trying to push it into tight gaps. If you look at Andrew Luck's throws, and he threw an interception trying to throw in between an opening, showed he didn't have the velocity on the ball last night, or I don't know if he'll ever get it back. But if you go back and you do homework of Andrew Luck's throws, you'll see a lot of passes out in the flat, a lot of quick hits right over the middle in a quick slant. Nothing, Charlton, on that deep, wide side out. He can't throw that pass right now. I don't know if he'll ever be able to throw it again. So as far as him challenging sidelines, I think the coach will have problems this season. People are saying, well, you know, he'll be all pro sooner than later. So I think they're going to do a flip on that. It'll be later than sooner, Charlton, because right now, Andrew Luck is not a viable threat at quarterback in the NFL.
You know, another thing I noticed about him, too, and I want him to succeed. He's won the West. He's a Stanford guy, but love to see him represent very well. But he doesn't have the running ability anymore because no one's going to tell him to go out there and risk getting injured. And you know, even though he's capable of doing it, he may have to run more because he doesn't have that arm for the outside passes anymore, or at least going 50 yards downfield. And if he forces it, that's a lot of picks waiting to happen. And they're trying to me, it just seems like there's a lot of pressure. They gave him $144 million. You can't sit $144 million on the bench too long and people will steal it. Okay, so they got to get him out there and say, look, we trust the medical. We trust everything the doctors have told us. We trust all the rehab. But you got to trust what you see with your eyes. And what I saw is just what you were saying. There's not a lot of push down the field, and I hope that they're not trying to rush him back too soon. Big C, I want to ask you, when we look at how the NFL changes every 2 to 3 years, and let's look at on the West Coast, we talk about Oakland, John Gruden. He's been out of the game for more than 10 years now. How effective will he be? I know they went to the Coliseum for a preseason game. They had more fans cheering for them than the Rams had cheering for them. At home the week before against Detroit, they had a nice showing of fans in Oakland, but this is still a team where the coach has chastised the best player on the team, Khalil Mack. I know people want to say it's Carr, but Carr doesn't get touched much. Mack is getting touched every time he's on the field defensively. Plus, he can play both sides of the field. Is Gruden what we thought he would be? I know it's only been 2 games. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, he's exactly what I thought he would be. A past coach that was out of touch with current mechanisms of the game. When you look at how football has changed since he was in the game, when Gruden was in the game, they would have to download tapes before.
Yeah.
And now everything is on the tablet, where you can download anything in an instant, Charlton. You can download a college play on the sideline and insert it into your lineup.
Yeah.
You know, Gruden doesn't have that ability or knowledge about the game, Charlton, when you think about where he is as a coach.
Yeah.
And so when you look at how players have changed teams versus when he was coaching before, Charlton, Gruden didn't have players coming in and out of the lineup every year, trade, free agency, and all of that. He wasn't accustomed to rebuilding a team. If you think about when he walked into Tampa Bay, he walked into a team that was built.
Yeah, but done.
When he started having to make decisions in Tampa Bay, you could saw that he wasn't in touch with the game, and this was over a decade ago, Charles.
Yeah.
So you think about a guy who has not been in touch with the game. Now, he sit up in production meetings, you know, pregame with teams and witness things. But if you go back and you look at his analyzation, Charlton, in the box, he's not as sharp as people thought he was. He missed a lot of things sitting in the box, and he had a bird's eye view of the game. Now he's going to be on the sideline trying to run everything, Charlton. He's not going to be able to recognize, and he's not going to see things as fast as he once did. He's not going to have a 50-inch telestrator in front of him looking at a replay, seeing what just transpired.
Yeah.
He's no longer going to have that ability. So when all these thoughts and excitement about Chucky coming back to Oakland, you know, had fans saying, wow, we're going to go back to the good old days.
Yeah.
It was true. They are going to go back to the good old days. But that wasn't winning either.
Yeah. I think their biggest success was their loss that they had at New England, the Tuck rule. And I thought the Raiders won that game, and Tom Brady thought it too, because when he walked off the field, he had his head down. He wasn't challenging, saying, hey, wait a minute, look at the replay. He walked down with his head down because he knew he had fumbled. But the good old boys in New England, just like with the Boston Tea Party, they said, we can't have football in tonight, not to the Raiders, them good old boys from the West Coast. So that was Gruden's best game because it showed him cussing. Now, Gruden, I mean, I like the Raider organization, but I grew up watching John Madden and Tom Flores, so it's hard to see guys live up to that. And they had more class on the sideline than Gruden. They didn't. That profanity-laced garbage, if we saw a lot of other coaches doing that, they would be called, we can have better than that. We need to have decorum or cut down on cussing. But I look at what the Raiders have done, and I know they got rid of another Raider great, but as a head coach, but they haven't scored, unless my math is off, they haven't scored 4 touchdowns this year. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's preseason. But if you have a quarterback who can throw the ball downfield, what are you saving it for? They won 6 games last year. This is when you find out what you have. People can look at what you did last year. There's nothing to save, Big C. They have to find a way to get into the playoffs, or why even get rid of the guy they got rid of in Del Rio, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, you brought in a guy that was out of touch. You brought in a guy for publicity. Publicity doesn't play the game. That's what you got to look at. The guy on the sideline is not playing the game. And you got to look at the last year that he coached. You know, what did he do to woo people to say, hey, this is the next great
he got
thing
fired.
in the NFL on the sideline?
He got fired.
Yeah. Based off of 2 back-to-back losing seasons, Charlie.
Yeah.
Losing seasons, not winning.
Yeah.
Losing seasons. And so that makes you question the stability of an organization. And like I said, this was all about marketing. We need to find a way to rile up our base to say we're coming to Vegas and we're going to be different. We're going to be the Raiders of the past.
Yeah.
No, that wild bunch of Al Davis is not showing up, Charlie.
You don't think?
Those
They're not.
guys that used to have to check themselves in the hospital the night before the game just so they could get some sleep.
Yeah.
They're not showing up.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be cruising with the twos. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to be on a chopper with Dr. Death, Skip Thomas. You know, you're not going to be riding up to the Coliseum in a limo with Art Cobb and, you know, the man from Mars, you know, Otis Fishbump.
Yeah.
Those days are not going to occur, Charlton. You're not going to have a snake. He's not sneaking in.
No.
So, you know, when you think about you want to resonate what you used to have in Oakland, Charlton, that's not going to occur.
Yeah.
You know, John Gruden is a misfit in a modern NFL. It would be like, say, okay, let's bring back Brett Favre.
Yeah.
We know he's a gunslinger. We know he plays on the edge.
Yeah.
You know, he has an attitude. He still has a touchdown left in him.
Yeah.
But like you said, 8 touchdowns.
Yeah. 8 touchdowns. Yeah.
And you're yet to see Gruden be able to produce that. You know, his offense hasn't showed anything that makes people excited yet, Charlton.
No, and I think no matter what people think of Jack Del Rio, they really didn't give Jack much of a chance. But Jack did get them into the playoffs. Okay, the last time the Raiders were in the playoffs, it was Jack Del Rio for the first time in a decade. And he wasn't cussing everybody out on the sideline. He had a lot of respect. He had coaches let his coaches coach. And I would love to see the Raiders have success. But almost for the fans of the East Bay, you know, put your heart and soul into the Oakland A's. They're not leaving, at least for the next 10 years, I think they're staying. But I want to see them do well. It'd be nice to see some playoffs team on the West Coast. But I just wonder when I haven't seen much of anything other than letting go some players that have had some good run with the Raiders. As we look at the game of football and the dominance game of the aggression game and the game of power, why is everyone trying to demasculinize football now? I know there's two things to look at. CTE has nothing to do with your masculinity. CTE has nothing to do with football being such a physical game. CTE has a lot to do with being hit in the head. The head hunting causes CTE, not hitting somebody in the thigh or the shoulder or the stomach. So why are we trying to make football more like the old football, the rugby-style football, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, rugby-style football, Charlton, ironically, is going to be tougher than the NFL football. When I look at the demasculinity of professional football or football period, Charlton, and, you know, I was doing some research because, you know, since I had my hip replaced, it gave me a lot of time to spend some extra time on the internet.
Okay.
Going back, searching.
Yeah.
And, you know, I found some troubling things. You know, and that's 3 former teammates of mine that were all linemen, Charlton, that passed away in the last year and a half.
Wow.
You know, and that's troubling. When you look at it, like I said, think about the position. They were linemen. And, you know, everyone is talking about protecting everybody else.
Yeah.
But no one has ever talked about protecting linemen in professional football, college football, or even youth football, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was doing that, I walked into my man cave like a fool, you know, I hobbled up in there.
Yep.
And I looked at a couple of my helmets. And you would see these grooves entrenched in these helmets, Charlton, that looked like somebody took a tool.
Yeah.
And engraved them in, these scars within the helmet. And we looked at those as badges of courage. And anybody who's listening to this show who's ever played football, and you had a scar on your helmet after a game or practice, that was a sense of pride. You bragged about that. You showed that off. That showed a sense of toughness, Charlton. And so if you go back and you want to look at old reels, Charlton, in the 60s and 70s of linemen, and you see these indentations in the helmet, you'll see these bent face masks, Charlton. That comes from constant, rigorous contact.
Yeah.
That linemen have to endure every play.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that the NFL, in their new helmet rule, has never discussed. The protection of linemen, Charlton. And when you look at the rash of deaths in professional football, and we could go back to the movie Concussion.
Yeah.
And Dr. Amalo's study. He studied linemen, Charlton. He didn't study running backs. He didn't study receivers.
Didn't study quarterbacks
He
either.
didn't.
Yep.
He studied linemen. They knew back then, the NFL did, that the problem has always been with linemen. But linemen are not glamorous highlight players.
Yeah.
Even though they endure the bulk of the pain and contact in a football game. And last night we talked about it in the show, and I was trying to count how many plays that I had played in, in my career, from, high school on up through pro. And then, you toss in the number of practices. Linemen go through this contact, Charlton, every play.
Yep.
Where they can be concussed, they can be knocked out, and no one pays attention to it. But you have a receiver who gets hit, he doesn't get up right away. You have a defensive back that doesn't get up right away, Charlton. It's the ultimate concern.
Yeah.
Because they say, well, these are the guys who sell the tickets. The linemen are the ones who pay for the tickets, Charlton.
Yeah.
Receivers and running backs might sell the tickets, but those linemen pay for the tickets. Without those linemen offensively and defensively, Charlton, we have nothing in the game of football.
Yep.
But I think that the NFL missed this point when they talked about this helmet rule, because these officials who are throwing the flags, and you talk about a defensive player. I mean, every preseason game that we have seen, Charlton, we have seen short yardage plays. We've seen running plays. What is the first thing when you look at the line of scrimmage and you have an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman there together with each other?
Yeah.
What is the first thing going to make contact?
The helmet.
Their helmets. The helmet. So how does this helmet rule apply? The NFL went at this in a thoughtless manner when they say, okay, we're going to put in this helmet rule to protect players. No one has talked about protecting linemen, Charlton.
Yeah.
With the concussions that they have all the time in games. And like I said, when I took a step back and I saw some former teammates that were no longer with us, Charlton, and they were all linemen. And I know that just like them and myself, we all suffered concussions during those eras.
Yeah.
And what led to this early demise? And we've seen so many linemen over the past couple of years, Charlton, retire. And people say, like, why they retire? They've only played 7, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. Well, they were tired of being beat up on, Charlton. But people challenge them saying, well, you still owe us more. You can't leave this game after 6 years.
Yeah.
We deserve more from you. You need to go out and get beat up more. You haven't been laying out on the field long enough.
Yeah.
So this is what the NFL needs to take a step back and look at with this new helmet rule.
Yep.
You can't take the helmet out of the game unless you remove the lineman.
That's interesting because there's a way that you can play a game, and we don't have rugby players having the CTE issues, and there was a time when people laugh about it. They go, what about the days of the leather helmets? I doubt, and it'd be nice to know if we had any studies of linemen from back in the day when they had the leather helmets. We didn't have that same issue now. Also, you didn't have linemen that weigh 350 pounds that can bench press 500 pounds and run the 40 and 4.92. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the game has evolved. People talk about the helmet rule. What has changed in football is the size and the dimensions of the players. And the field has stayed the same. If you go look at the National Hockey League, the ice size has changed over the decades, Charlton. They've actually expanded the size of the ice in the NHL because the players have gotten bigger and the contact has become more intense. Well, when you look at an NFL player today, Charlton, compared to an NFL player from 70 years ago, there's a 100-pound weight difference.
Yeah.
A 100-pound weight difference from a lineman 70 years ago versus a lineman today.
Yeah.
Same with a running back, receiver, quarterback, Charlton. They were diminutive players playing. You talk about the leather helmet. When the leather helmet was there, Charlton, people didn't use the helmet as a device.
Yeah.
It was just a protective cover. And they saw that even in the involvement of players during that era, Charlton, that they needed to protect the face.
Yeah.
So they brought in the face mask. Just like in football, hockey brought in the face mask because they knew that the players needed more protection because of the game's evolvement, how the players were getting bigger and stronger, and the contact was becoming more intense.
Yeah.
And you look at how they've modernized the helmets today, Charlton. I know when I started playing, we had a suspension helmet. There was a canvas suspension inside the helmet.
Yeah.
That's what they had. Concussions were a lot less then, Charlton, because helmets weren't really used as a weapon.
Yeah.
You didn't have these huge face masks that cover up everything. It had a couple of bars on there.
Yep.
But, the game has been made dangerous by the manufacturers, Charlton. When you look at the growth of the helmet, the shoulder pads,
yeah,
the helmets, the protective gear that players wear, Charlton, they have found ways to weaponize the players. And now, because the league over the years has weaponized the players, they want to find the players for what they've created. That's not what they're saying. They have weaponized it. If you look at, you go, anybody, Google it. Google a picture of an NFL player from the 50s,
yeah,
from the 60s. Look at what they wore. Look at their clothing, how baggy it was, Charlton. You could grab a player's jersey and sling him to the ground.
Yep.
They weren't skin tight, Charlton, coated with silicone where you couldn't grab anything.
Yeah.
This is where players are now. And they have on so much protective gear, whether it's hand pads, gloves, elbow pads, knee braces, and everything else, Charlton, because the game is so violent.
Yeah.
But all of that is attributed to the helmet. If you look at the helmet has become the number one device to make the game dangerous.
Yeah.
So if they want to take the helmet rule and modify it properly, Charlton, then they need to alter the helmet. They need to make the helmet where it's not as hard as it is. You think about the leather helmet.
Yeah.
It was soft, Charlton.
Yeah.
You look at the hard plastics that they use now. You could take that thing and dent up a car, take out the window on a car, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's how violent you can be with that helmet.
Well,
So the NFL has taken weapons and telling players that they're irresponsible because they created these weapons and put them in their hands.
It'd be interesting when we talk about Olympic boxing and how a lot of the Olympic competition, they will have the padding around the helmet. I remember seeing...
They all have to wear it. In amateur boxing,
yeah,
head padding is required, just like in high school wrestling.
Yeah.
The headgear is required, Charlton.
So that would be a no-brainer. And if you really... people might say, well, we can't go back. Yes, you can. If you give players a chance, or at least trying out, they want to try out new rule changes in preseason, why not try some type of leather helmet? I'll tell you one thing, but guarantee people wouldn't go head first into a contact. Big C, your thoughts?
Mark Kelso played safety for the Buffalo Bills, number 38, that four-season run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He wore this padded crown on the top of his helmet. People made fun of it, Charlton. But he wore it because of concussion that he had. So the doctors and the team found out a way to lessen the blows to the head by putting this foam crown over his head.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at a lot of college football teams, Charlton, they have these foam paddings that they put on players in spring ball on top of their helmets. Now, the NFL could do that, but the NFL is about looking sexy, streamlined, marketing, selling. This is not a reach, Charlton, that, you think about when I played, Bike came out with a helmet that was air inflated.
The air one, yeah.
The air bike, that you inflated the helmet once you got it on the head. But that was internal inside the crown of this helmet, Charlton.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing for externally on a helmet. Where the head's going to look large, but it's not going to be any heavier, Charlton.
Yeah.
You can put this inflatable cone on the outside of the helmet to inflate and deflate, which will help absorb for the player's safety. We're not talking about a stretch.
Yeah.
We got to get out of the sexiness of trying to sell sexiness in sports and create safety.
Yeah.
This is something that all the helmet companies have the technology of, Charlton, because if you go back and you look at some of these major college programs, and you'll see these inflatable shells on top of these helmets of these players, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's very marketable for all of football leagues to do this. It's not that expensive, Charlton.
Yeah.
They can do it for player safety.
Well, they've done it with the shoulder pads to make them bigger, to take more distance from the body and the contact. But one thing that I noticed, even in the automotive industry, they've taken the bumpers on cars, and most cars are plastic bumpers now, or they're rubber bumpers or whatever they are. When you hit them, they pop back in shape. Go back in the days when cars were more dangerous to drive. They were all made of metal and steel. If you bumped it, that dent stayed in that steel, or that steel was strong enough to put a dent into something that you bumped. But now you can bump a car and it pops right back into shape. So we know that technology is there. I would hope that they would get serious about that. And at the same time, you can make football as soft as you want it, but if we don't stop the helmet-to-helmet contact, that's what causes CTE. Not getting someone a hard hit in the shoulder pads or a hard hit to the midsection. It's the head-to-head contact. I hope we can deal with that. I want to also just mention that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, or high school team, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. There's a kind of a disturbing story. Came out today, I believe. Richie Incognito having a disturbance at a location down in Florida, I believe. Now, I know people say, well, maybe he's hyped up on some stuff, whatever people want to look at, but he's someone they might want to get some help before he ends up hurting somebody or hurting himself. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Incognito's had a history of this, Charlton, when he was with the Dolphins, when he was with the 49ers, when he was with the Bills, bullying and threatening people, Charlton. And he's a huge talking man. When he was with the Rams, he played with the Rams.
Yeah.
And he's had a history of suspected substance abuse.
Yeah.
Throughout his career. But, when these incidents start occurring off the field, and former players have a hard time adjusting to everyday life.
Yeah.
To find a way to get rid of all that unspent energy, Charlton, when they're not in training camp, when they're not around the guys that are their size all the time. And they become imposing figures in the public.
Yeah.
And, they're easily riled. And Incognito's had a history of that. And when you talk about getting help, this is what the public doesn't see with former players. And this is where the reach out for the Players Association and the league needs to be.
Yeah.
There needs to be programs in place to help players de-escalate from playing.
Yeah.
To make that social adjustment into society. To let them know life is not going to be easy. Trust me, it is not, Charlton.
Yeah.
From going to be paid to be fight every day. Think about that. You're paid every day to beat up on people physically. Then all of a sudden people say, well, we don't want to give you a job anymore.
Yeah.
And then someone comes up on the street and says the same thing to you that an opponent would say across the field from you for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to, compartmentalize that? How are you supposed to react to it?
Yeah. You got to. I mean, either we're not making excuses for Richie Incognito, but I do believe with all the studies on his CTE and guys that end up hurting themselves or hurting somebody else, I would hope that the teams he's played with reach out to him. I respect Kevin Love of the NBA and DeMar DeRozan for the NBA. They came out and talked about having some issues with just depression or whatever they were going through, anxiety issues, mental health issues, and something that a lot of people know goes on, but they push it behind closed doors. And what I don't like about, and it's easy to say what I'm going to say, but we just saw the ceremony with the Hall of Fame, which is a wonderful ceremony for the men who get nominated into the Hall of Fame. But outside of maybe a 30-second soundbite, there's not a lot of talk on the CTE and some of the men who are struggling with it as they are accepting their gold jacket or watching their former brethren get the gold jacket. And here we have right now a walking contradiction in Richie Incognito getting paid for that behavior on the field. Now it's something you could be arrested for. And instead of, maybe they are reaching out to him, but you got to want the help. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you spoke about the Hall of Fame. There's 260 players, I believe, in the Hall of Fame. 360 players. There was 110 players at the ceremony, former players. So that lets you know that that alumni class is either not there or not able to attend.
Yeah.
And when you see some of the players that were there, Charlton, the physical struggles that they possess.
Yeah.
That's real. That's real time. We celebrate athletes while they're playing, but we forget about them when they're not playing. As I spoke about 3 former teammates of mine, Charlton. And you lose touch with guys, and then you wonder why you've lost touch with them. Not that you wanted to, it's just time passes, and all of a sudden you look up and find out they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
This is in all the professional leagues.
Yeah.
And I know you touched on a couple of NBA players. It's almost like a faux pas as a professional athlete to show weakness to let people know that you're having problems mentally.
Yeah.
And the struggles are real, Charlton. They start out from the time that you're being recruited in college, when people say, oh, you're going to make it, you're going to be big, you're going to have all this money.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to help out everybody in the family. And then a lot of the players who do make it, Charlton, find the pressure coming on them continuously.
Yeah.
From family members, from friends. You know, I need help financially. You know, they feel you're obligated to buy them a house, a car, to get them out of debt, you know, to take them on vacation. All of these things. And depending on your background, if you don't have the mental strength and fortitude, then you feel obligated. And all of a sudden, the pressure's on you when your finances are gone. And your finances are gone, and these people are like, hey, you know, you should have been more careful with your money.
Yeah.
You just went crazy buying everything.
Yep.
Realizing they were pressuring you. And everybody is not strong, Charlton.
Yeah.
When people are always putting pressure on them about money to say, hey, you know, this was me. I'm out earning this. You know, this is the reason why you have to have a job. And so many athletes succumb to that. And they have this mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to disappoint people that they spent their lives around, saying that, well, I helped you when you didn't have anything, and, you know, when you were there in college and you needed a meal, and, you know, I was always washing your clothes and sending you a care package, and when you were little, I washed your clothes. They put these mental mind games on these athletes, Charlton. And you don't know what the breaking point is for these athletes. And we've seen so many athletes seeking help from anxiety that, you know, when they do, people will say, hey, he's not a macho man. He's not tough.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even be playing the game.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes you talk about it, and that's why I respect a lot of these guys. We all want to be a millionaire. I mean, most people do. And I look at Kevin Love and DeRozan. These guys are worth $100 million. So it's not the lack of money that's causing stress. And sometimes they say too much money causes problems. I would love to experiment that right at Disneyland. Get on the line that give you too much money. But it is something that I just hope that people around them can reach out to them before they hurt themselves or somebody else. And we know that's part of life, but hopefully they can get some help. I do want to talk about a little bit Hugh Jackson. He said he didn't want to risk losing his job because of having a rookie quarterback control what's going on with his team. Now, whether he wants to do that or not, when the media shows up and the ownership is saying we want to start this new guy that would just put a lot of money in, Hugh Jackson is going to have to deal with that, or he's going to be out of a job too. And no one's saying a guy making a few $1 million a year is having tough times, because there's a lot of guys not making anything. But for them, he's going to either get fired or stay hired on his own dime. Why not make it your own decision? If you feel that you're going to be in jeopardy if you don't play a player, but you're going to get fired if you play him and you lose, then just, make that choice. Do it on your own dime. If that make any sense, Big C?
Well, you know, I like Hugh Jackson in this stance, Charlton. He said, I went out and traded for a quarterback that was in the playoffs last year.
Playoffs?
In Tyrod Taylor.
Yep.
And I brought this guy in because he had veteran leadership quality, and players would listen to him. I went out and brought in some pieces via trade and free agency that would work well around him.
Yeah.
Now, Hugh Jackson has seen rookie quarterbacks in the NFL before, Charlton. This is not his first rodeo.
Yep.
And the cry from the media is that, well, Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. That doesn't guarantee him success. Eli Manning was the number 1 overall pick in the draft, Charlton. He sat behind Kurt Warner. A lot of people don't remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
He sat behind Kurt Warner. John Elway was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He sat behind Steve DeBerg.
Yep.
So when we talk about quarterbacks having success and quarterbacks learning, Charlton, they don't always walk in. The first quarterback taken last year in the draft, Charlton, Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
Okay? He didn't start the season. Mike Leonard started the season in Chicago.
Yep.
And then when he did take over, there wasn't much difference in success when he took over.
No.
So, you know, to say that Baker Mayfield, who has a average NFL arm, not a great NFL arm, Charlton, and who is going to struggle throwing that out ball, and especially when it gets cold up on Lake Erie late in the year. But you go with Tyrod Taylor because you know you have the number 1 draft pick sitting on the bench. If he develops in practice and in the preseason, that's a plus.
Yeah.
But Tyrod Taylor is game-tested and ready. Go with the guy that's ready. You know, I hear that same talk in New York with Donald, and I know everybody loves Donald. They say he should have been the number 1 overall pick. But I also look at Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
I got another quarterback that's been in the playoffs. And you got teams inquiring about him already, saying, wow, is he available for trade?
Yeah.
Why would you get rid of Teddy Bridgewater out of New York? You got 3 quarterbacks in New York sitting. They're making less money, all 3 of them, than your cousin is in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And a lot of other those high-priced quarterbacks stuff. You got 3 quarterbacks in New York that's not costing you $20 million. Why would you even want to take with that, Charlton? You're out of $15 million between 3 quarterbacks. What a great position to be in.
It is.
And one of them has already been to the playoffs in the NFL.
Yeah. I tell you what, why is it that having playoff experience is a detriment? And I can't figure it out. Everybody wants to drop the quarterback so they can get to the playoffs. Here you got guys in Bridgewater that has playoff experience and Taylor that has playoff experience, and people are saying, well, we want a guy that did not even win a national championship in college to start for us. So if your ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl, only one team is going to win that. But you do have a chance to get to the playoffs. And what I learned just a long time ago, whenever you go to any company, they have you team with somebody who has experience. And you learn from the guy with experience. They don't have you learn from the new person because you are the new person. And it just seems like these 2 organizations are getting that mixed up. They're trying to ignore the knowledge you just espoused about Elway wasn't a starter when he went there. Brett Favre, he wasn't always a starter either. Even looking at how, if you look at Eli, he wasn't a starter when he started the league. So everybody knows that in some things in life, you got to get mentorship. What's wrong with taking these quarterbacks that you like and let them sit at least 6 games or even 10 games so they're not destroyed? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what I look at it, that there's 4 teams in the NFL that made the playoffs last year, and they all decided to get rid of their quarterbacks. Kansas City, Minnesota, the Vikings,
in Buffalo.
Well, I already said in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So these quarterbacks are gone. And so when you sit around and you got these quarterbacks coming in and say, okay, what are they going to prove? Buffalo's going to be a perfect example of this, Charlton. You got 3 new quarterbacks basically in Buffalo this year. From a team that made the playoffs last year, Charlton.
First time in over a decade.
And decided that quarterback wasn't good enough because he made the playoffs for you.
Yeah.
And this even after you benched him during the season. He still came back and got you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you got the guy left that you benched him for. You got the guy that you took number 1 overall in your draft, that never played against an NFL player in college, and saying that he's NFL ready because he's this prototypical guy. Now, he's only completing a little over 50% of his passes, just like he was in college in the preseason.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do once the regular season starts? If he dips below 50%, what's going to be the excuse at that point, Charlton, when he's only completing 49 to 50% of his passes during the regular season?
Yeah.
Is the game going to be too big for his big arm at that time? Are all these prognosticators going to be, well, he's going to need some more time? That's always the magic answer. When one of these guys are struggling, he's going to need more time. And I think that's what was said when he was drafted, and that he should have sat behind the veteran and learned. Yeah. Is that he needed time, Charlton.
Yeah. And time is a good thing because it gives you the chance to learn. I mean, a lot of people learn when they're watching and observing what's going on. So when we do talk about the quarterbacks, you think of Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matthew Stafford, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, Andrew Luck. Which one of these quarterbacks are on the hot seat? I know a lot of people, they want to give Kirk Cousins, they treat Cousins like he's, Joe Theismann that came from Washington. He's not. And Garoppolo, they treat him like he's Joe Montana. And I don't see that yet. And then Stafford, we know, I think the Lions have only won 1 playoff game in 50 years, so not expected a lot out of him, even though $100 million contract. Eli, maybe on the way out. Tom Brady, can't say anything bad about Tom Brady. All he does is win. Phillip Rivers, great quarterback, but playing with the Chargers. Maybe this year, because the AFC West is up for grabs, it seems. And then Newton, people don't like Newton because he gives football to kids. And then Andrew Luck, I hope he's not injured. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what I look at is Matt Ryan. You become the highest paid player in the NFL without ever winning a championship. You know, that's a serious question to answer. What is the Atlanta Falcons going to do? If the Atlanta Falcons don't make the Super Bowl, did they waste money? Jimmy Garoppolo, for a week, was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's never thrown a touchdown in any championship series, Charlton.
No.
He's never even thrown a pass in a championship series.
No.
But at one point, he was the highest paid player in the NFL, Charlton. Kirk Cousins, we know he doesn't know what the playoffs looks like.
Yeah.
But yet, everyone is thinking about him as his superstar.
Yeah.
Kid out there on the West Coast with you, Derek Carr.
Yeah.
You know, got the Raiders to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. The following year, he looked very pedestrian, Charlton.
Yeah.
So can he have a bounce back year with a coach that hasn't been in the game in over a decade? You know, what will he bring to him?
Yeah.
So when we talk about these quarterbacks being under pressure, Charlton, Eli Manning, like you said, this is his last hurrah. If Eli Manning doesn't get it done this year, Charlton, if the Giants halfway through the season are not a 500 team, Charlton, or above, Eli Manning needs to go back to the bench.
Yeah.
Because their future has passed him by.
Wow. I don't know if they'll sit him on the bench because he's become like the prodigal son of New York. But if you want to win, you just got to let people produce it on the field. So, I mean, everybody loves who they love. We all want to see good sports. I want to see good things happen. Ohio State going to make a decision, I believe, sometime this week, maybe even as early as tomorrow, on what to do with Urban Meyer, whether he knew about his assistant coach and all the shenanigans, and even something that the guy did at the White House, supposedly, allegedly. But then I look at LSU, Orgeron, who's been maligned everywhere he's gone, whether it's USC or whether it's at LSU. And he had a player that did something stupid, and the next day, after coach found out, then they suspended him for the team based on team standards. So Orgeron, who's much maligned by coaches, and maybe they don't like the way he speaks, but he did the right thing according to following university protocol. But then Urban Meyer, I don't want to see Urban take the fall for something he did not know, but it sure seems like he knew a lot. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's amazing when you're running an organization as long as Urban has run one, is that you're not in touch with every aspect of that organization. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that if Urban wasn't gone the next day, that there were some people sitting around with some deep pockets.
You said that.
Trying to figure out how Urban was going to stay.
Yeah, you said that.
This wasn't an open and shut case. It's like, hey, we're boosters here. We're about winning. We're about tradition. And it took us a while to get back to where Urban Meyer took us after Jim Tressel was gone.
Yeah.
After Earl Bruce was gone. And every coach that they've gotten rid of, Woody Hayes, they've had to go through the rebuilding process. The landscape of college football has changed so dramatically is that you can't fall by the wayside for 2-3 seasons now, Charlton, and expect to come back. Look at the University of Florida since Urban Meyer has left.
Yeah.
It has never regained the claim that it had.
Wow.
So when they start looking at the economics and the sponsoring of these universities, Charlton, University of Texas hasn't gone back to where Mac Brown had it.
Brown, yeah.
USC hasn't gone to where Pete Carroll had it, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at the economic landscape of where college football goes, when you decide to get rid of one of these mainstay high-profile coaches, you have to look at the economics of all of it.
Yeah.
And say, is this a continuous incident, or did we eliminate the incident, Charlton?
Yeah.
That's what Ohio State is going to look at. They're going to say, we're going to let the guy serve a 2-3 game suspension. That's what's going to happen. And Urban Meyer is going to be intact.
Yeah.
But they're going to say it's for the good of the university. It's a learning process. That's what's going to occur here, Charlton.
Well, I think you called that one spot on, Big C. So no matter what happens, I think we're seeing how many schools are really concerned about whether it's domestic violence or sexual assault, especially when it happens to one of their own brethren. Do they hide it? Do they put it out there and for the world to see it as a teaching moment? Or do they do what Orgeron did down at LSU? Did they say, we're going to follow the protocol and not hide anybody's feelings or hide anybody's emotions or anybody's reputation? They let the law take over, and I think that's the right thing for the people involved in that situation. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, With all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Johnson, what I'm looking forward to is all this great NBA coverage that we didn't have to listen to today. It was a breath of fresh air, to sit back and deal with the sports of what's going on. Major League Baseball, Little League World Series, unfortunately, was rained out today.
Yeah.
And NFL, what's the big moves in training camps, and what are people looking forward to?
Yep.
We'll get back to the NBA next month.
Well, we will definitely get back to it. It's amazing how fast kickoff season is coming. I hope that everybody is looking forward to it, staying healthy, and all the time following every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Big C Sports on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911. Because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.